Have you ever stopped to wonder what's really inside that spoonful of sugar, that scoop of protein, or those colorful gummy bears? These everyday things seem simple, but the way they're made is anything but. From farms and factories to strange ingredients and hidden truths. Today we're diving deep into the surprising world behind how sugar, whey protein, and gummies are made. Trust us, it's not what you think. There's a lot more going on than shiny labels and sweet flavors. Stay with us until the end. You'll never look at your pantry the same way again. Where it all began. Before sugar filled your pantry, protein powders lined gym shelves, or gummies became a candy aisle staple. These everyday items had surprisingly humble and sometimes strange beginnings. Sugar's story starts thousands of years ago in ancient India. Back then, it wasn't just a sweetener. Sugarcane juice was boiled down into a crude brown lump known as gur, used more for medicine and religious offerings than for food. Later, as trade routes expanded, sugar spread through Persia and Europe, eventually becoming such a sought-after luxury that it was called white gold. Whey, on the other hand, began its life as waste. Literally, it was the watery leftover from making cheese, and for a long time, cheesemakers simply threw it out. But by the 20th century, scientists discovered this byproduct was packed with protein. What used to be trash became a fitness essential. As for gummies, their story begins in early 1900s Germany. A man named Hans Riegel, a struggling candy maker, created the first gummy bear using gelatin and sugar. His company, Haribo, would go on to change the candy world. What started in a kitchen pot, he once said, became a global favorite. But these weren't just food products, they were tied to deeper shifts. Sugar, especially, fueled colonial empires and was at the center of plantation economies built on exploitation. And yet, over time, all three, sugar, whey protein, and gummies, transformed from niche discoveries to mass-market favorites. They're now part of our diets, gym routines, and even health supplements. As we look deeper, we'll see how these products go from raw form to packaged perfection. And it all begins in the fields, farms, and factories. Cultivating the raw materials. Everything begins with the raw stuff. The plants, animals, and processes that start it all. For sugar, that's either tall, leafy sugarcane grown in hot, tropical climates, or sugar beets planted in cooler, temperate fields. On farms in countries like Brazil, India, and the US, giant machines slice through acres of cane stalks at harvest time. Those sweet stalks head straight to the mill, where the juice extraction begins. Milk is where whey protein's journey starts. Dairy cows are milked, and that milk is chilled and tested before it's sent to cheese factories. Once curdled, the leftover liquid becomes the starting point for protein processing. Gummies have a different story. The key to their chewy texture is gelatin, and that comes from a less appetizing place. Boiled animal parts, bones, skin, even fish scales, all boiled down to extract collagen, which forms gelatin. It's not pretty, but it's the reason your gummies bounce. Corn plays a major role too, especially in the form of high fructose corn syrup, a common sweetener in gummy production. It's processed from huge fields of corn, mostly grown in the US, but sourcing isn't always simple. These ingredients often cross borders, which raises big questions about fair labor, environmental impact, and traceability. As one food sustainability expert said, "You are what you eat, and also what it took to grow, harvest, and ship it." Next, let's see what happens once these raw ingredients hit the first stage of production, when they are broken down and refined into usable forms. First stage of processing. Once harvested or collected, these raw materials don't stay raw for long. Sugarcane is chopped and crushed to squeeze out its sweet juice. This juice contains the main prize, sucrose. The leftover fibrous pulp, known as bagasse, is often burned to power the sugar mills. A clever bit of reuse. In the world of whey, milk is heated and treated with rennet, an enzyme that causes it to curdle. Curds become cheese, and what's left behind is liquid whey. It's still a far cry from the protein powders you see in stores, but the journey has begun. Gelatin production is all about time and temperature. Animal bones or skins are simmered for hours, slowly breaking down collagen into a jelly-like substance. It's this jelly that, when dried and ground, becomes the base for gummies. Cornstarch also undergoes serious transformation. Using heat, enzymes, or acid, it's broken down into simpler sugars, glucose and fructose. forming corn syrup. At this stage, the first real signs of industrial flavoring start to show up, especially in gummy production. Artificial flavors, food colors, and acids are blended in. As one candy developer puts it, flavor is chemistry, and the lab is our kitchen. Once the breakdown is complete, it's time to clean things up. And that means filtering out everything we don't want. Filtering the good stuff, purity is key, and that means filtering out the junk, literally. For sugar, the juice goes through clarification. Lime and heat help separate the unwanted stuff. What's left is a golden syrup that's ready to become crystallized. Whey undergoes a more high-tech process called microfiltration. Specialized filters remove fats and lactose, isolating the protein. The result is a pure, concentrated liquid full of amino acids. Gelatin is filtered too, not just for clarity, but to remove any lingering smells or colors. It needs to be clean, neutral, and consistent before it can be used in gummies. Corn syrup follows a similar path, being refined to a smooth, even consistency. It's tested constantly to make sure it performs the same in every batch. Meanwhile, those gummy flavorings, natural or synthetic, go through their own tests for intensity and safety. As one food scientist said, you can't leave flavor to chance. It has to hit the tongue just right. With everything now filtered and clean, the ingredients are ready to be concentrated into their final form. And that's where the transformation really takes shape, concentrating the product. Now the magic happens. The purified ingredients are concentrated, dried, cooled, or thickened, depending on their final role. Sugar syrup is boiled down in massive vats until it's thick and sticky. Then, it's seeded with fine crystals to start the crystallization process. That's how white sugar forms, in glistening, sharp-edged grains. Whey is turned into powder through a process called spray drying. The liquid is blasted through nozzles into hot air chambers, instantly evaporating the water. What falls is a light, dry protein powder, easy to mix and shelf-stable. Gelatin is cooled until it forms a rubbery gel. This is the base of most gummy products, and it gives them their iconic texture. Corn syrup is also concentrated. Its thickness is vital. Too runny and the gummies won't set properly. Too thick and they turn hard. Finally, it all comes together. Colors, acids, sugars, syrups, and gelatin are poured into giant mixing vats. In these swirling industrial kettles, the gummy base is born. As a candy plant manager once said, this is where it turns from ingredients into experience. And up next, we'll explore how that mixture gets molded, shaped, and turned into the final form you know and love. Molding, forming, and shaping. Once the ingredients are ready, it's time to give them their final shape. The form we recognize in our kitchens, gyms, and candy bowls. This stage is all about transformation. The goo becomes structure. For sugar, the crystallized syrup is dried and sorted. If it's going to be table sugar, it's often milled down to a uniform granule size. Some of it gets pressed into cubes, some powdered for baking. It's here where sugar stops being a syrup and becomes something you can scoop with a spoon or pour into your coffee. In whey protein production, the powder is now clean, dry, and fine, ready to be flavored and packaged. But first, it's often blended with other ingredients like cocoa powder, vanilla flavor, or even digestive enzymes. This is when companies tailor their products for different needs: post-workout shakes, meal replacements, or dietary supplements. Gummies take a more playful path. That hot mixture of syrup, gelatin, flavoring, and acid is poured into trays of starch molds. These molds are shaped like bears, worms, rings, anything you can imagine. The molds hold the shape while the mixture cools and sets. After a few hours, the gummies are firm enough to be removed, but they're not quite ready yet. Once out of the mold, gummies are tumbled in oil or a light wax to keep them from sticking together. That glossy finish isn't just for show. It helps with shelf life and texture too. A production manager once said, "A gummy without shine is like a donut without glaze. It works, but it's missing soul." Everything is now physically formed and recognizable. The next step? Getting it ready for the outside world. And that means packaging. Not just to protect the product, but to sell it. Packaging for the world. After all the effort to grow, extract, purify, and shape these products, None of it matters if they aren't properly packaged. This stage might seem simple, but it's where branding, food safety, and logistics all collide. Sugar is usually packed by size and purpose. Fine sugar goes into small kitchen bags, while coarse or industrial sugar might be loaded into 50-kilo sacks for bakeries. Whether it's paper, plastic, or bulk containers, the key is to keep it dry and uncontaminated. Whey protein packaging is more specialized. It often comes in big plastic tubs, sometimes resealable bags. What's printed on those containers matters a lot. Nutritional panels, protein content, mixability, and added ingredients are all listed in bold. One nutrition brand executive put it this way: "You're not just selling powder, you're selling what people want to become." Gummies are sealed in airtight bags or plastic bottles. For vitamin gummies, child-proof caps and clear dosage labeling are a must. For candies, it's more about visual appeal, bright colors, fun fonts, playful branding. In either case, the packaging helps maintain freshness, prevent sticking, and tell a story. Each unit is stamped with a batch number and barcode. This isn't just for the store checkout, it's a traceability tool. If something goes wrong, like a contamination event, factories can recall specific batches without pulling every product off shelves. From there, it's off to distribution centers, loaded onto pallets, and shipped across countries or even oceans. Trucks, trains, and ships all play a role in this supply chain. And what once was a cow in a field, a sugar cane in a swamp, or a gelatin pot in a factory is now sitting on a store shelf or inside your home. Of course, to keep up with this massive scale, manufacturers turn to machines, and that's what we explore next. Factories, automation, and efficiency. Inside a modern food production plant, things don't look like kitchens. They look like science fiction. Rows of automated machines, robotic arms, and gleaming stainless steel tanks work in near-perfect rhythm to produce millions of units a day. Sugar mills today are sprawling industrial complexes. Conveyor belts move raw cane through crushers, boilers, clarifiers, and centrifuges. The process is timed down to the second. Sensors monitor temperature, pressure, and moisture, adjusting the machinery automatically. A single modern sugar mill can process thousands of tons of cane every day, with only a handful of operators on the floor. Whey protein plants are equally high-tech. Once the whey liquid is filtered, it's sent through reverse osmosis and ultrafiltration membranes. These setups look more like a water treatment plant than a kitchen. After drying, the powder is blended and packaged, often without a single human hand touching it. Strict hygiene rules are followed throughout. Air is filtered, workers wear full-body suits, and contamination is monitored constantly. Gummy production lines are some of the most visually interesting. Rows of molds pass under syrup dispensers that squirt precise amounts of mixture into each cavity. Cooling tunnels, tumbling drums, and oiling machines finish the job. It's almost hypnotic. As one plant technician put it, "It's like watching candy choreography." But these factories also use a lot of energy. Not all of them are efficient or sustainable. Some repurpose waste, burning sugarcane pulp for energy, or using leftover whey water for animal feed. Others still dump or waste byproducts. The pressure is growing for more transparency and greener processes. And as the industry automates more of its work, questions about oversight and ethics grow louder. Still, the efficiency is staggering. With machines doing most of the heavy lifting, the scale of production keeps growing. But as we scale up, we also begin to see the cracks. Let's now take a closer look at what the industry doesn't always want you to see. Industry secrets and controversies. Behind the bright packaging and polished ads, the world of sugar, whey, and gummies has its darker corners. The journey from field to shelf isn't always as clean or fair as it seems. In many parts of the world, sugar cane is still harvested by hand, often under brutal conditions. Workers in countries like India or the Dominican Republic spend long hours in the sun, earning very little. There have even been reports of forced labor in some supply chains. As one human rights advocate said, "Sweetness shouldn't come at the cost of dignity." Whey protein, while marketed as clean and healthy, sometimes hides lower quality ingredients. Not all products use pure isolate. Cheaper blends may contain fillers, artificial flavors, or even ingredients not listed on the label. The supplement industry isn't tightly regulated, which leaves room for shady practices. Gelatin's source also raises eyebrows. While many consumers don't realize it, the gelatin in gummies comes from animals, often from industrial meat processing plants. This sparks questions about animal welfare, traceability, and religious or dietary concerns. Corn syrup, especially high fructose versions, has been under fire for years. Critics link it to obesity, diabetes, and overconsumption of ultra-processed foods. Yet it remains cheap, stable, and easy to work with, so it's still used widely. Then there's greenwashing. Many brands use buzzwords like natural, clean, or wholesome without meeting any legal definition. As one food marketing expert said, labels tell stories, but not all of them are true. Despite all of this, people are becoming more aware, and that's pushing change from the outside and the inside. Which brings us to a crucial topic: the truth about how these products impact our health, nutrition, and health truths. Let's face it, just because something is popular doesn't mean it's good for you. Sugar, whey protein, and gummies may all serve a purpose, but their health effects vary widely depending on how they're used and how much. Sugar is the most obvious culprit. It's in everything from cereal to salad dressing. While it gives us energy, it also spikes blood sugar, leads to fat storage, and can contribute to heart disease when consumed in excess. The problem isn't sugar itself, it's how much of it we're eating without even knowing. Whey protein, on the other hand, is seen as a health hero. It's rich in amino acids, fast to digest, and helps with muscle recovery. For athletes and gym goers, it's a go-to. But not everyone processes dairy well, and some products are loaded with additives or sweeteners that can undo the benefits. Gummies walk the line between treat and supplement. Gummy vitamins in particular are booming in popularity, but they often contain more sugar than you'd expect, and sometimes less of the actual vitamin. As one dietitian said, if your vitamin tastes like candy, it probably is. There's also a big shift happening. More people are switching to plant-based protein powders, using sugar substitutes like monk fruit or erythritol, and cutting out unnecessary additives. Food companies are being forced to adapt. The labels we trust don't always tell the full story. Zero sugar might still include artificial sweeteners. High protein might come with a high dose of fillers. It's more important than ever to read carefully and ask questions. And speaking of questions, let's look at how consumers are changing what gets made and how the industry is reacting with new trends and custom options. Trends and customization. If you walk through a grocery store today, you'll see that sugar, whey protein, and gummies have all gone through major makeovers. What used to be simple pantry staples are now designed for every type of lifestyle, diet, and mood. Sugar isn't just sugar anymore. It comes infused with flavors like vanilla, cinnamon, or even lavender. Some are smoked, others are tinted, and more brands are focusing on how sugar fits into cooking as a craft ingredient. People want sugar that looks good on social media as much as it tastes good in tea. A food stylist once said, "The way a sugar crystal sparkles in the light, there's poetry in that." Whey protein has exploded in options too. No longer just for bodybuilders, it now caters to keto dieters, aging adults, and even busy moms. You'll find it blended with collagen for skin health, probiotics for digestion, or nootropic ingredients for focus. There's unflavored protein for minimalists and dessert-like shakes for those who want their supplements to feel indulgent. Gummies have perhaps transformed the most. They've leapt from the candy aisle to the wellness section. Today's gummies contain everything from melatonin for sleep to CBD for stress to caffeine for focus. They've become delivery systems for lifestyle support. Texture, flavor, and appearance are carefully engineered to make them feel more like a treat than a routine. And behind all of this is the clean label trend. More consumers are checking ingredient lists, looking for words they can recognize and pronounce. They want fewer artificial additives and more natural flavors, even if the definition of natural isn't always clear. These trends reflect a bigger shift. Food is no longer just about fuel, it's about identity, wellness, and choice. What we eat, how we eat it, and how it's made now says something about who we are. As one branding expert put it, we're not just buying food, we're buying a lifestyle. But while these custom options can feel empowering, they also mean with the new pressures, higher prices, confusing labels, and constant marketing. And behind the scenes, the industry still has work to do. Which brings us to the biggest conversation of all, sustainability. Real or marketing? In today's food world, sustainable is the new magic word. But how much of it is real and how much is just good branding? Let's start with sugar. Some farms are turning to regenerative agriculture, rotating crops, reducing chemical use, and improving soil health. Others are experimenting with drip irrigation to save water. It sounds promising, but only a fraction of global production uses these methods. Most cane is still grown in ways that deplete land and burn fossil fuels. One agronomist put it plainly, we know what works, we just haven't scaled it. Whey production surprisingly has a few eco-friendly twists. The leftover water from whey filtration can be reused for animal feed or turned into fertilizer. Some advanced facilities even power parts of their plant using methane captured from dairy waste. But the process still relies heavily on energy and milk, which has its own climate impact. Gummy production is slowly adapting. There's rising interest in plant-based gelatin, using seaweed-based agar or fruit-derived pectin. These not only appeal to vegans and vegetarians, but also avoid the animal waste issue entirely. Packaging is another area of innovation. A few companies are testing biodegradable or compostable wraps, especially for single-serve protein packets or candy bags. But sustainability claims can be hard to verify. Labels like eco-friendly or responsibly sourced are often unregulated. Some brands are doing the work, others just say they are. That's where greenwashing becomes a real problem, when environmental language is used more for sales than actual impact. Still, progress is happening. Governments are stepping in with carbon taxes, waste regulations, and tighter food labeling laws. Consumers are also speaking louder with their wallets. As one sustainability consultant said, every checkout is a vote for the kind of food system you want to support. So the next time you scoop sugar into your coffee or tear open a gummy vitamin, remember it's not just about taste anymore. It's about where it came from, how it was made, and what kind of world it's building. That awareness is shaping what comes next. And speaking of the future, let's wrap this journey by exploring where it's all heading. What the future holds, the future of sugar, whey protein, and gummies isn't just about more flavors or better packaging. It's about rethinking how they're made entirely. Technology, science, and consumer values are reshaping what these products will look like in the next 10 years. Take sugar, for example. Lab-made sweeteners are on the rise. These aren't artificial chemicals like saccharin or aspartame. They're precision-fermented sugars made by microbes in tanks, genetically engineered to produce sweetness without ever planting a cane or beet. They mimic sugar's taste but with fewer calories and no massive fields. Some are already hitting the market. Whey protein is next in line for a revolution. Scientists are now growing dairy proteins without cows. Using fermentation techniques borrowed from brewing, companies can grow casein and whey from yeast or fungi. It's the same molecular structure, just made without the animal. These proteins could slash the carbon footprint of dairy and offer new options for people with lactose issues. Gummies might seem less high-tech, but they're getting smarter too. Imagine 3D printed gummies with customizable nutrients, designed for your age, diet, and health goals. Or interactive gummies that change flavor as you chew. These aren't science fiction. Food tech startups are already working on prototypes. On the policy front, governments are cracking down. Sugar taxes are becoming more common. Some countries now regulate how much protein or sugar can be advertised to children. And labeling laws are changing, forcing more transparency about where ingredients come from and what they're mixed with. What's driving all of this? You are, the consumer. And as people ask harder questions, make more informed choices, and demand better from brands, the industry responds. The future isn't just built in labs or factories. It's shaped in homes, grocery carts, and online reviews. As one food scientist said, The next generation of food will still satisfy your cravings, but it might also save the planet. And with that, our journey comes full circle. From ancient fields to futuristic labs, from old sugar pots to smart gummies. These three products have changed a lot over time. But in the end, they're not just about what we eat, they're about how we live. And there you have it, the wild journey from fields and factories to your kitchen shelf. Sugar, whey protein, and gummies each have a story that's way bigger than their packaging. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.